Hey everybody. What you're going to end up watching is another clip from a greater video in terms of factoring complex trinomials. This is one where if you already understand the theory to it, can we just get a little extra practice with some explanation as to how we can go through the little fast factoring chart. So here's two more problems that can maybe help you get better at your fast factoring. Good luck. Okay, so what you see on the screen are two more complex trinomials. I still want to walk through and make sure that we're good with using this fast factoring method. I don't assume because we've gone through one problem that we're great at it. So let's just take problem C and let's work our way through it to see how well things go with fast factoring. So I take a look at that complex trinomial. First thing I look for is a common factor, and I notice that there's no common factor. So I take a look at my leading coefficient, and I see it's a 3, and so I say two numbers that would multiply to give 3. Nice and easy, 3 and 1. It's a prime number. Well, now I take a look at my constant on at the end, my 2. And I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give 2. And so I might try 2 and 1. And now what I do is I look to multiply across, expanding in my brackets, to see when I multiply across, do I get two numbers that I could come together to give me a -5. So right now, if I were to multiply those numbers, I would end up getting a 3 and a 2. Now, I can put a 3 and a 2 together to give me a -5, because a -3 and a -2 give me a -5. For me to multiply those across and get -3 and -2 would have to mean that my 1 was negative and my 2 was negative. Notice now, when I multiply across, I get a -3 and a -2. And one of our last checks that we walked through was taking a look at these two signs and seeing if they match up. And we'll notice they do not match up. If my constants at the end were -2 and -1, those would have to multiply to give me a +2. A negative times a negative is a positive. And so I notice that that fast factoring chart does not work. So I'm going to erase what I have. And rather than write 2 and 1, what I do is I flip it, and I make it a 1 and a 2. Now, some people get so fast with this, they'll just put a line through the options that don't work. Other people like to erase it, keep it clean, doesn't matter. Now when I go and I multiply across, I notice that I get a 6, and I notice that I get a 1. Can I put those numbers together to give me a -5? Yes, I can. I can get a -5 if the 6 was a negative and the 1 was a positive. So I need to make my 6 a negative. That's why I put the negative on the 2, because I'm going to multiply that 2 by 3 to get me my 6. And I need to make the 1 a positive, because 1 times +1 is my positive. I get a last check again, different signs, giving me a negative. I know that I'm correct. So I have my factors. I'm just going to get rid of everything that I have here that I would not normally put in my chart. I don't draw my blue arrows. I know that I'm multiplying across. I would suggest, though, I don't think it's a bad thing to write those signs in, because I do think that that really helps when you start to transfer your chart into your brackets to create your factors. Okay, here we go. So my first factor is a 3, put in my variable, +1. And my next factor is a 1, of which I will not write that. So put in my variable, minus my 2, and there we go. And of course, The nice part about factoring is you always have the option to re-expand it and see if you get back to the original, and you'll notice that we do. Okay, I think it's time for you to try one on your own. So I'd like you to take a look at D, and I want you to try to use some fast factoring, use the chart off on the side to try to factor that expression. So I want you to pause the video, give it a shot on your own, and we'll come back and we'll see how well we did. Okay, pause it now. Okay, we're back. So we're going to take a look at that. First thing we look for is a common factor. There's nothing in common. So we go to the leading coefficient. There's our 5. Two numbers that multiply to give 5, 5 and 1. Then we jump down to the constant at the end. Two numbers that multiply to give 2, 2 and 1. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Some of you are not even going to write down 2 and 1. Because even after only tackling 2 problems, you're already starting to build up instinct. And you can already see, like you're already looking down the line, that 5 and 2 cannot get you 11. So what you're doing is you're already starting to build the instinct of flipping some things in your head in a way, or just going directly to what you need. That you can see that 2 and 1 isn't an option, so you may try 1 and 2 as your first option. Now we multiply across, and we should be good that when we multiply across, we get a 10 and a 1. You need those to come together to give you a negative 11. So 10 and 1 can give you an 11. The way that they give you a negative 11 is if both were negative. That means you need both of these values to be negative. And you get a quick confirmation. They need to multiply together to give you a positive, so you know you've got a good chart. Now all we need to do, transfer it over into our factors. So we're going to put in our brackets and our variables. A 5m minus 1. Just make a note whether you just kind of shut your brain off and just wrote down an x. Remember, we can see the variable that we need. So a 5m minus 1 and a 1m minus 2. Okay, so you take a peek, see how well you did. Again, we could always check by expanding. So I'm hoping that I had nobody sitting with the incorrect factors on their page. Perhaps what we had was nothing. We tried in our chart, didn't quite work, we hit a snag. So maybe we didn't have any factors, but we shouldn't have been sitting there with the wrong factors. We can always re-expand to see if we get back. Okay, what I want to spend some time doing now is talking about some shortcuts. And I don't really want to say shortcuts, but what they are ways to limit the number of options that we have to attempt. Okay, let's jump in and play with some more.